We begin with a battle for Pokrovsk, where Ukraine has deployed special forces to defend the eastern city from an intense assault by Russian troops. Ukraine's top military commander says his troops are holding Pokrovsk, and though he estimates that Russia has more than 100,000 soldiers fighting in the area. This follows Russian reports that Ukrainian forces in Pokrovsk were surrounded and beginning to surrender. Both claims cannot be independently verified at this time. Moscow is pushing to capture the city as it seeks to take total control of the eastern Donbas region, which is made up of Luhansk and Donetsk. And we're joined now by Richard Shirreff, who served as Deputy Supreme Allied Commander of NATO in Europe from 2011 to 2014. He's the co-founder of Strategia Worldwide. That's a global risk advisory firm. Great to have you on the show, sir. Now, Russia is intensifying its push to take control of Pokrovsk, reportedly deprioritizing other areas along the front line in order to do so. Why is it focusing so much effort on seizing this city in particular?
Well, thank you for having me. This has taken, the Russian effort in Pokrovsk has been going on for well over a year and resulted in the expenditure of huge numbers of Russian casualties. And the Russian advance has been literally at a snail's pace. It has taken them eons to get where they've got to. Why are they so focused on it? Because it's there, because they've expended a huge amount of effort in doing so. And this is a classic case of, in a sense, reinforcing, rather than reinforcing maneuver success. It's a case of continuing to batter their head against a pretty substantial Ukrainian brick wall. And they will go on in a sort of wooden-headed way to do so until they've got it. And even then, once they've got it, what will it profit them? Frankly, not a great deal, except for a Pyrrhic victory and some smoking ruins.
But Ukraine really doesn't want to give up on the city either, right? They're sending in special forces. How big a blow would losing Pokrovsk be for them?
Well, clearly, Ukraine would rather not lose it. But at the end of the day, in any battle, in any campaign, you have to give a bit, you have to take a bit. And of course, Ukraine has been moving forward as well. So it's not, the Russians have not all had it all their own way. And Ukraine is making it extremely difficult for the Russians. So it's not over yet.
You mentioned Russia's advances in Ukraine being very slow, but they have been progressing nonetheless. Do they currently, in your opinion, have the upper hand on the battlefield?
I don't think either side has the upper hand. I don't think the Russians have got the upper hand. I don't think the Ukrainians are and the Ukrainians are certainly not losing. And all this points to the fact that there is a degree of stalemate, which, if Ukraine's partners recognized and doubled down on military support for Ukraine, the momentum could shift significantly in Ukraine's way. And at the same time, let's forget the fact that Ukraine has been achieving real success with deep penetration strikes against oil refineries, against other infrastructure, which is making it extremely difficult for the Russian war effort.
What kind of support would Ukraine need from its allies to break the stalemate?
It needs a proper strategy for victory from its allies. It means NATO, and it means, the assumption that America is no longer a reliable ally of NATO. It means the European member states of NATO, Germany, France, Britain, Italy, and all the other NATO member states have got to come together, and they've got to think strategically, and they've got to recognize that Europe's long-term security depends on Ukraine being free from Russian aggression. It means giving Ukraine, it means a proper strategy to achieve a Europe whole, free and secure against long-term Russian aggression, because Russia will never give up its intent to take over Ukraine, to conquer Ukraine. And it means a military line of operation, which means giving Ukraine the military means in substantial quantities to achieve their aims. What does that translate into? It means long-range precision missiles. It means German Taurus missiles. It means Tomahawks. It means British Storm Shadows. In addition to that, it means all the training support, the logistics support, the shells, the drones that Ukraine needs. At the same time, it means financial and economic lines of operation to cripple the Russian economy, to double down on sanctions on those nations continuing to import Russian oil and gas. Don't forget, the European Union imported something, paid Russia €1 billion in August alone for its gas. So if we're serious about European security long term, we need to recognize that we've got to make sacrifices as Europeans in order to achieve Ukrainian success, because the only way there will be a lasting ceasefire in Ukraine is when Russia is forced to recognize Ukrainian sovereignty.
Everything you say makes a lot of sense. Why is it not happening?
Because of a lack of political will, political vision, and political courage.
And how can we get to a point where that courage, where that will comes back into play?
Now you're asking the $50,000 question. Here we are 3 years down the line, 3.5 years down the line, and our European leaders talk, a lot of hot air. Are they really doubling down in the way that I've described? No, they're not. And I'm afraid, I fear the very worst, that because they're not prepared to do what needs to be done, Russia will ultimately see that it has achieved its aims, declare some sort of temporary ceasefire before it comes back and has a go. And the real concern I have is that unless Russia is stopped in Ukraine, it'll try somewhere else, because that is the logic of the Putin regime. And before we know where we are, we will be in a NATO war against Russia, which would be the ultimate catastrophe. So it's up to us now to ensure that our political leaders' courage is really stiffened.
But that's also what we're hearing out of Europe, right? We've heard Kaja Kallas say exactly that over and over again. We have heard Ursula von der Leyen say that over and over again, that Putin needs to be stopped or else. So I'm asking again, who's building these roadblocks to get to a point where we can build up enough pressure to really stop Putin? That means sacrificing money. That means putting maybe troops on the ground. I don't know what the real way could be here, but obviously Ukraine's allies aren't taking this seriously enough. What needs to happen?
Well, I would love to see Kaja Kallas as the Secretary General of NATO, because if any European leader gets it, she does. And I'm afraid a lot of the noise we're getting out of NATO, I think, from the current Secretary General, has been complacent in the extreme. And now is the time to pop the bubble of NATO and European complacency and force the alliance, force Europe to recognize the very real dangers that we're in. A political leader like Kaja Kallas is absolutely well placed to do so. But of course, what is she? She's head of the European foreign policy wing or arm, and has no real executive power. It means political leaders like Britain's Keir Starmer, like President Macron of France, like Chancellor Merz, really doing what needs to be done. And actually, to be fair, credit to Chancellor Merz, because he's turning the German defense budget round. But at the end of the day, unless they come together politically with one voice and speak the same language, I fear Europe yet again is going to miss the ball.
The one leader you're not mentioning when you talk about a solution is Donald Trump. The Trump administration has been pushing for a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. What's your opinion on those efforts to put an end to the war, or at least to the fighting for now?
I think President Trump was wasting his time. I think he's being played by Putin. I think he is, as you saw, with Trump Trump welcoming an indicted war criminal on the red carpet in Alaska. He is giving Putin effectively what he wants. And that the deal that he was trying to force down Ukraine's throat was no more than a capitulation deal, which would have suited Putin. Why Putin didn't accept it, goodness knows. He was going for everything. But no, there was no way the Trump deal was going to stop this ceasefire, because it would not force Russia to recognize Ukrainian sovereignty. All that would have happened is that Russia would have rebuilt its armed forces, regenerated, and then had another go at some stage down the line. I'm afraid Trump cannot be relied upon, because every time he talks big, Putin has a phone call with him and Trump gets back in his box. There's no doubt who is the boss there.
That's Richard Shirreff, former Deputy Supreme Allied Commander for NATO in Europe. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.